conformed to a moral law that is against God and them who have inherited the land until the day of defilement, meaning, well, truth is the ultimate defilement, said to be the crossing of Jesus Christ, but his truth was so uh, godly that it was believed with many, and still many had punished him as he carried their guilt, and in turn they learned in the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth of all interracial um, sexual fall of man, or any woman who purposely seeks, kills, and destroys man in the law that is said to be made for the fall of man, and Jesus Christ who carried them all through to the end and away from that constant uh, conflict in the law, which is ultimately the truth about God. The lucre, uh, the lucre of us all is the eye watching on TV everything everybody loves, and then taking that is upon the people that act and placing it in a lawman to purposely punish all of God's children who have inherited the land, which is to say, one who can salvage or tithe the land, raise it up, and in that uh, rising of the land, him who is worthy to inherit the kingdom of heaven also has inherited the sea and made as numerous as the stars to help carry the inheritance. The purpose of life then becomes a great conquering understanding, conquering self when law purposely tries to defile you. Knowing you're awake, those people know you're awake to the grave since you're a little bitty baby, and they purposely try to antagonize you, taunt you, tease you. It's all these things are written in the seven sins of pride, lust, vanity, greed, wrath, gluttony, lust, all those things that are written with lucre, uh, the priests in 1 Samuel 8:3, the lucre of, and I would consider reading the whole book of Samuel, chapter 8, in order to understand the priest's guilt when he makes a lot of money but does not speak the truth. He can't go into a church and say, all right, I accept money from an idol. I put it in your children. I seek them out in a census, and I try to find anything and everything I purposely can against them, that the idol may be free, and the child pays for that idol's freedom. The lucre of the idol bull, that uh, that Persian copycat uh, Artaxerxes, who shared the ark with King David Wiglaf, the king of all 12 tribes, that penis fish that has power with Caesar and his money, which is considered the law in today's state of Texas or California, who shares the same plate as Texas, when they are with the idol bull in the idol churches, and all the people who are forced to stand up and defend themselves constantly. It's not like this when you're a kid until they find out you have some kind of talent, especially in a school that is small, and uh, you're raised with a police, or you're raised with a judge, or you're raised close to those people, or in the family of those people. They will waste you like a mother and try to get you to blame your mother. They will try to get you to blame your family. The false teachers and the false sign or the sign of false teachers in Titus 1:11. I would say read the whole entire book of Titus. The people have a head of an idol, a bull, an idol, or an elephant, or a zebra. And this was the last presidential elections, was a bull, or it was a mule, elephant, and a zebra, I believe, or a goat. That's what it was, a goat. And I had spent time with all three of the goats, the bull, and the elephant, and the false um, people at a church that I can't say that they accept money from them, but this is the union. If the church is the dark union, the union that has money from idols, or the union that has money from strippers, the majority of a church is a stripper or a woman with many men, and they seek nothing but God's children to decipher the truth with the archangel who had favored them. A theft. These people willingly and knowingly know you're most likely a poor man, beaten, stricken, hexed, slandered, cursed, and it's by your own doing, but they want you to point your finger and blame and testify against them. That is not the fact. If I testify against them, then I will be used as a sacrificial name. If I testify for them, then they can't do nothing but sacrifice themselves. And this is what Jesus Christ did, testifying for them. This is what I like about you. This is what I don't like about you. And this is what you need to do. And this is the will of God and the concept. Either you follow it or you don't, or these things will take place. And it's called the Great Burning, the Great Awakening of all people, where 1/3 of the earth is cast down upon the sea, and all people are burnt, and the land and the sea is turned dry and desolate, or the sea is cast down and the land is turned dry and desolate, because it is the people's choice antichrist, saying God's children in the flesh, able to sit at the throne in hell, able to go into heaven from hell and rise in purity and speak off the pureness of the elders that had founded the earth and its foundation, the dragons who laid the earth, the dragons who laid the coral, the dragons who raised up the sea from the earth into the heavens, and the dragons that abide in the stars, able to cast down the stars. This is said to be the commandments of Solomon, the commandments of Solomon that rise up with him who is worthy. All them, all the people that have no inkling of an idea that they're being used in a divination, the images that are made, the worms that make images for themselves are the abomination of the Lord, like it reads. And any man who practices divination is an abomination to the Lord, understanding that these worms of the covenants, they call them pain worms, little pieces of God, the little pieces of God that are the covenants of God that make images for themselves, being practiced in this divination for the idol bull, that lucre, that man with a lot of money in his pocket, still trying to reach in poor people's pockets with the worm that have made images for themselves, and that image going back and forth from one person to the next. It is an abomination. It is against the commandments of Solomon. And eventually that dragon in that darkness with all the stars cast those commandments down. It was said in the Bible was 1/3 of the sea was cast down and 1/3 of the land was burned by it, and Jesus Christ, who had risen, taken Solomon's commandments down. He had risen up with Satan. He had gone up into heaven with Lucifer. He had spent time with that great law, Perseus. He had spent time with that Lord of Lords, King of Kings, Hercules. He had been the blood that was shed upon him as he fought in the Colosseum of Caesar, which is in today's state of Texas the law, and the lucre of the idol bull that added to it, and all of the scriptures that I had explained written in the Bible. Lucre, the the people that have no absolute idea or inkling of an understanding deserve to know these things, that a preacher who's got a lot of money in his pocket can't speak these things. He can't go before a crowd of women. He can't go before a crowd of children knowing he's got the same horn of the bull, but he can't rise up with one horn. That preacher with a lot of money, who's got the same horn, the same bull horn, that idol bull, he can't rise up with one horn, but he can't speak in front of a large crowd of children the things of truth and get away with it. He can't speak before a crowd of women who also wear the same bull horn, but they can't rise up. They have no salvation. They can only spread those covenants of the fleshly ark into people, and those worms that made images for themselves are the abomination in the divination that practice in that preacher's denomination. And that abomination one day will cause a great corrupt land. And it's not the fault of them who have wisdom, but they are said to be the ones to blame. And you can see the irony of this, who is the law that covets God's children, hoping that we point our finger at everybody, blaming everybody. But you see how that switches around when one is triumphant, able to sit at the right hand of the throne, where the sword and the shield and the helmet of salvation and the belt of truth and the shoes of gospel and the breastplate of righteousness is, and rise up into heaven after the final passing away, after the final death, after we're gone again, a beaten candlestick, beaten over and over again, dead, come back to life, a part of all three deaths. Dangerous, dangerous sword to play with. It is a very deadly cross, says the book writers. Illuminati, James Patterson, with that book called Deadly Cross.